every time you get a bank statement, which is monthly, you want to look at your cash account and see if you look the same. It's basically a way to verify that you've written everything down right, that the bank has written everything down right. How many in this class do their checkbook, reconcile their checkbook, at least maybe not monthly, but
Try to.
close to monthly maybe? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, not too good. So you're pretty trusting on the bank, or that no other fraud is going on. That's one of the other reasons to do a bank rec. But the ultimate reason is just to get your books, at least from a company standpoint, which is very important, up to date. We got to know what is our true cash amount. Whenever you, for the 4 of you that do your check balancing, if you look at the end of your checkbook and it says $2,000, does the bank statement usually also agree with you at $2,000?
No, you probably have checks out.
Yeah, it usually doesn't agree. It's going to say maybe $2,300 on your bank statement, but you see $2,000. Huh, why is it different? That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be figuring out why the books aren't the same. And here's the 2 things that are usually on the bank side. When we do a bank rec, we're going to have a bank side and an R side. These are usually the 2 items that show up on the bank side. Things that the bank doesn't know about, but you do. Meaning it's in your books. You've adjusted, if you're a business, you've adjusted your cash account. Say you wrote a check for $400. You have that you wrote a check, but the bank doesn't know it. Because you wrote a check to Billy's insurance, and the insurance company hasn't deposited yet. Therefore, the bank doesn't know you even wrote a check. That's what this is, an outstanding check. An outstanding check. Checks that you have written, but the bank is unaware of. Thus, hopefully it makes sense that your books, the company's books, will have a lower, I should put lower, not smaller, is it? Change that wording there. Lower cash balance than the bank. You have the check written, but the bank doesn't know it. Just the opposite here. Sometimes if you make a deposit at a bank, and a lot of times they're done electronically, you may not do much deposits, but you'll see a little placard on the front of the bank that says, all deposits after 2 p.m. will be on the next business day. So if you went into the bank on one of those cutoff days, you could easily have a deposit on your books, but the bank doesn't know about it officially per their statement. And that's called a deposit in transit, and we're going to see some examples of that. Again, you don't have to write all of these word for word, but I definitely want you to kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. These are more my notes, not necessarily condensed into a nice, here's a 1-2 word bullet point that really makes it really good. I kind of worded it just for me, but I think it works to, instead of me writing all this out too, to just put it up here. And if it goes too fast at the end, or I can send you some of these and you can re-look at it. But we've got quite a bit to cover, so I'm gonna keep moving. And we're gonna look at the very first part of number 30. Number 30, we started that on Tuesday, and we actually did page 2, or the top half of page 2. We're going to come back to page 1 now. In this very opening example here, to kind of show you what a bank rec does and what it looks like, I've made it extremely simplified. And I'll show you how that is, why it's simplified in a minute. But let's answer this first question here. The bank says we have 9,141, and my books, for Bell's company, they show 8937. Who's right? Who has the correct cash balance?
Technically, the bank.
You think the bank? Anybody disagree or agree?
We do.
You think you do?
The customer.
The Bells?
The customer should have.
Customer has the right number? Maybe
Yeah.
the bank doesn't? What do you think?
I think we do, as
We
the
do?
Bell's books, yeah.
I think neither of them do.
Neither of them?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because the
You
bank
think
can
what?
also,
both? They both have, how can they both be right? They both have two different numbers. I want to know how much cash do I really have right now if I wanted to take all my money out of the bank and go somewhere else?
The bank's
The
right,
bank.
because there's money floating, it's not in your account yet.
Okay,
but what if you made a deposit and it's not in there
yeah,
yet?
that's a good point.
The reason I say that the customer should be the one who's in the right, they should be ahead of the bank's books or bookkeepers.
Yeah, but then yet the bank can also take out, like if you're overdrawn or anything else.
Good point. All right. We'll answer that question. We'll come back to that in a minute. I'll answer that. To do it, this is how I do a bank rec. Doesn't mean it's the best way or the only way. And if you do your checkbook a different way and you're used to doing that, do it like that. But for those who aren't very used to doing it, this is how I'm going to show you how to do a bank rec. You need to have two columns and start with your ending balance. What you know to be true as of right now. The bank says, from what we know, you have 9,141. And we believe we have 8,937. When I get down here at the bottom, this better be like a trial. This will be like a trial balance. My two numbers better equal. And we're going to hopefully get to that point by doing a bank reconciliation. If I was looking, so my cash balance, if you're looking at a T account, you have a whole bunch of entries. And my final total, when I was adding everything up, was 8937. Okay, now we're going to work from that. First thing I come to, we made a deposit at the end of the month, but it didn't show up on the bank statement. Whose numbers do you think I need to... Now again, this is just a bank statement, or a bank reconciliation. Nothing I do on here actually affects the bank's numbers, or my numbers. If I'm going to affect my numbers, what do I need to do if I'm going to affect this 8937? I need to make a what? A journal entry. Yeah, I need to make a journal entry if I'm going to affect it. Just by me putting a number here doesn't affect my cash in any way. I need to go over there and make a journal entry, and we'll do that when we get to it. Okay, so we found a deposit that wasn't on the bank statement that we did know about. Whose numbers do I need to adjust to get to the most accurate that I can? Who doesn't know the information and I need to adjust
The
it?
bank.
The bank. What do I need to do with the bank? Add or subtract that amount? Okay, yeah. What if, now, what I want you to assume is, what if the bank did know about this? What would their number be, higher or lower? If the bank did know about the deposit, would this number be higher or lower? Higher, so I need to add. DIT, deposit in transit. I'm pretending that the bank knows about that. And they will shortly. Outstanding checks. 4 checks I have written. I look at between my checking book, my checkbook, and the bank statement, and there's 4 checks that aren't showing up on the bank statement that I have written. If the bank knew about those checks, would their number be smaller or higher? Smaller. So I gotta take each one of those out. Outstanding checks, and then I'm gonna list them. I'm gonna put the check number, 1916. So next month I can go back and see, did 1916 finally clear? And I'm gonna show that the bank, if they knew about it, it would be $461 lower. A lot of times, these are the only two areas that we're going to affect that we're going to adjust on the bank side. Sometimes the bank could have an error. For our class purposes, just to be as clear as I can, we're always going to assume that if there's ever an error, which there will be, we're going to assume it's our error and that we need to make a fix. Okay, so just kind of remember that. If there's ever an error, it's going to be our error and not the bank's. So when I talk about the error, so those are some items, those two are things that the bank may need to adjust. Here are about 5 others, and there's a couple more that we could easily add into this, but some of the main ones. Things that the bank knows about, but I don't. I need to update my books. Did the bank accept a direct deposit? Somebody paid the bank and I got money. Or sometimes you'll see checking account interest income. It's usually pretty small, but still, you got extra money that you didn't really know about until you saw the bank statement. Something that we need to adjust my books. Non-sufficient funds check. Okay, that's when we're looking at it from our perspective. We're looking at it from the business standpoint. In that Jackie wrote my business a check, and Jackie didn't have any money in the account. So therefore, I didn't get paid. It looked like I got paid. I thought Jackie paid me $100. But when I went to take it to the bank, it was denied. I didn't get the money. Usually that's going to be something that the bank knows first, and then I will find out about later. So that's something that we're going to adjust. A couple items other here. The bank may, usually not for personal checking accounts they don't, but for company accounts they usually do. They'll have a service charge. So they take money out of your account. And then one we're going to have a lot is errors. Somebody made an error. They either didn't write it down, like an omission. Maybe they flipped a couple numbers. So common things that are going to happen and we need to adjust on our books. Number 3. We saw that the bank statement shows that I paid a check that you actually see on the bank statement. Sometimes you can actually view the check and it says $523. I paid. However, back on whatever day that was, I'll just put long ago, just so we know it wasn't today. I made the entry I made a payment to Davis, and I mistakenly wrote it for $532. And that's what I have in my journal. That's obviously not right. I need to do a correcting entry. The bank is showing me that there is an error, So on 1031, I'm making a correcting entry. I think it helps if you make a little mini T account just to help visualize. I showed on my books that I made a payment of $532. What should the payment have been, the final payment?
$523.
$523. So what do I need to do with my T account to make that true? How do I go from that $532 to $523 on the cash paid side?
Take away $9. Or
Or
debit $9.
Yeah, I'm going to debit. I'm going to add back $9. I took out too much. So my correcting entry is going to show debit to cash for $9 and put back on Davis's bill $9. I took off too much in my incorrect entry. And I'm going to note that here on my bank rec. I need to add $9 to my total, because I didn't really spend that much. The next one's pretty self-explanatory. We had a bank fee. I didn't know about the bank fee until I saw the bank statement. Bank fee's going to take money away. But just by putting it here doesn't do me any good. Until I go over here and actually apply that to my books, it's pointless. So I'm going to go over here and put bank fee expense for $6. Credit my cash. Then we see on the bank statement that, there was a check that never cleared. One of my customers, and I'll do this pre-entry again, went up here long ago. Who knows when it really happened. But long ago, somebody paid me, so it was to me, now I'm getting the check. Somebody paid me $125, my customer. So I said, oh good, cash. 125, credit the receivable. And it comes back and I see it on the bank statement. I'm like this. I need to do a adjusting entry to show that this entry didn't really happen. And I also then tell you that not only is there no money there, the bank charges me a penalty. Because I tried to cash a check that didn't have any cash in it, and so it's kind of like penalizing me. But of course, I'm not going to take that penalty. I'm going to pass that on to my customer who didn't pay me real money, just paid me a check that wasn't worth it. So instead of going back on my books for $125, Scott owes me $150. Because I lost $150. The $125 that I thought I had, and then the bank took out another $25 of my money. Last one we note, we see that there's a $20 ATM withdrawal for $20 that It's not showing up in any of my journal entries that I had a withdrawal from the owner. I need to put that on here. I need to show that I had a drawing, or you could put omission if you wanted to. Either way is okay. I had omission, a drawing omission that I forgot to put down. Not only do I do it there, I've got to come over here and officially update my books to say, yeah, we really did have a drawing this month for 20 bucks. I lost cash. What do you get? Do my totals equal?
Yes.
Okay, what do you get when you do all this here? What's the number?
8,770.
Yep. And did you then get 8,770 when you added and subtracted that side? And we know we found everything. What's my true final cash balance? My cash is really 8,770. So back to the question. Who had the right amount on their books? Nobody. Who actually said that as an answer in the class? Yep, the one that's always wrong, right?
Are they plus going to be similar to these things, or?
Not quite this straightforward, and that's what we're going to look at now. So look at number 31. This is more of what a real bank rec is going to look like. So what I've given you is a partial, well, really kind of a bank rec. Just usually bank recs are more numbers and maybe more confusing to look at. I tried to make it as easy to see as possible. The bank said at the end of last month, I started with $31.96, and then I had all these checks that I wrote, all of these deposits, and as you'll see at the bottom of yours, it's hard to see on this one, I have $99.33 in the bank says is my final balance. That's what I want to start with when I'm doing my bank rec. My cash balance says I have $12,220 when it's all said and done for December. I want to determine now what's the real cash balance after I've checked the bank side, I've checked my side, made a comparison, and do they equal? What you're going to want to do, at least this is what I would do, I would look at, you should have something either marked out or something in the explanations for each one of the checks as we go through. So like for this first one, I see check number 1198 for 65 bucks that I paid on account to John. That's not showing up anywhere over here. Therefore, the bank doesn't know about it. What's that? What kind of check is this then? What do we call that?
Outstanding.
Outstanding check. So out here to the side, I'm going to make a little note to myself when I'm doing the bank rec that that's an outstanding check. Same for the next one. There is no check 1201 yet. When I get to check 1203, there is a 1203. And the numbers match. I don't have to do anything with that check anymore. So the next time I get a bank rec, that check, it's wiped out. It's been accounted for. It matches. There's nothing to do. But then say we come down here to, I'll skip one here, 1255. Well, we do have a check for 1255, but it's not for the same amount. 45 versus 54. We know that there's an error. And remember, anytime there's an error, we're going to assume it's our error. And to know then, how am I going to affect this on my bank statement, my bank rec? I would make a little tiny T account just to help visualize it. I showed that I had $54 coming out. I really should have only had 45 coming out. What do I need to do on my bank rec? Not subtract 9. Add 9. So you need to go through the rest of these. Either have it marked out or have a little note to the side, and then go through and do the bank rec. So take the next 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll go through the answers to this. We'll see how well you did. This is very similar to what your homework is. Every time you do something on your side, you better have an entry, a journal entry. How many outstanding checks did you come up with? 5. Anybody else get that or not?
No, I got 5.
Yep. I think 5 too. This is how I would have started out. You could put your deposit in transit first if you want. I just put the outstanding checks. I just flipped it this time. So I listed each check by number that isn't accounted for on the bank. And I accounted for it here. And then I did see that we had a deposit that we made that wasn't showing up on the bank either. Remember, anything on the bank side, we don't do journal entries for. We've already done them. I've already shown that I have a check written for $65. I don't want to do that again. I'm just waiting for the bank to be able to catch up. Usually the bank side is the easier side. I also have the first check that we did as a practice. My correcting / adjusting journal entries. I need to add in cash. And the account that was affected, $12.55, my electric bill. So I had too much on my electric bill. I need to do a correcting entry to make it right, take a little bit off of that electric expense. The next error is the one with the question mark. We took out money, but we forgot to write it down. That one's pretty easy. I need to take 125 out of my cash. And then show that the entry, what it should have been, should have a drawing of $125. Credit my cash, took money out, just forgot to put it down. The next error is all the way down to 1273. What do I need to do there? What do you think to my cash? Because there's an error.
You got a debit cash.
Debit my cash, correct. I need to add $180 back on my books. Because I took out too much from my wages. I wrote it down wrong. I need to take $180 out of the wages expense because it didn't really happen. That's the last check error that I see. The next one you may think, oh, there was an error in deposit 326. But it wasn't really an error. It was really a non-sufficient funds. The bank obviously didn't put down $23.66 in sales or in cash brought in. They only put down what cash I really had. Because that $250 non-sufficient funds check, that wasn't included in their deposit, even though I showed it. I need to remove that money. And on this one, I didn't show any kind of a fee. Typically, there probably would have been. I need to put that back on my customer's bill. Put it back on his account that he owes me $250. I don't have that $250. And then the only thing left that I should have everything accounted for now, except that bank fee. I need to show that I lost $12 in bank fee expenses. Bank rack will finally balance. You go in and work for any offices like their office manager or bookkeeper, you're definitely going to be doing this. I had to do that, and it can be very frustrating when you have a big company, and not even big, that just has lots of checks and lots of different expenses everywhere, and you're trying to find them all and to match them up, and then they still don't match, and you don't know why, and then you see a check written for $45, and it just says to something very general, and you're like, well, I don't even know what that was for. You got to go around to all the departments and ask them what question. Each question say, "You probably wrote this. What was it for?" So I can properly document it. This can be a pretty long project in real world. Anything on this that you want to This is almost identical to what number 32 is. Number 32 is the graded homework. The part that I'm kind of focusing on, I guess, for the homework, because we could have the homework on any one of the sections that we're going to be talking about today or last time. But I'm focusing on this part, because I think it's pretty important, especially for entry-level type jobs that do this. Next thing we're going to look at, now, we have looked at cash type issues so far. On Tuesday, we looked at petty cash and the change fund, 2 cash type items. The bank rec is pretty much all cash. Now we're moving down a notch, looking at receivables.